three-dimensional false world construct system buster reporting for duty. What's up, y'all? Hope y'all enjoying yourselves. I hope y'all are taking things a little lightly. There's a lot of things going on in the world, and it can be interesting navigating these times. There's a lot of speculation and not a lot of answers, and who knows what else the world has in store for this year. But that's why I think it's so important to get out this information and to kind of keep reinforcing the truth, as far as whatever, take it or leave it. I'm not gonna say I have the truth, I guess, but trying to awaken people, trying to give y'all more than what is offered out there. A lot of people are just there's a lot of channels, not just YouTube channels, but there's a lot of people who are channels, and there's a lot of people who say just generic information a lot of times, especially when it comes to spirituality and stuff. A lot of them say the same thing: as above, so below, and da-da-da-da. And it's just like the same stuff, just repeated, but nobody's really giving anything. Nobody's really saying, yo, this is what it is, this is what it isn't. Because I feel like people are afraid. Maybe they may know what they're talking about, they may not, And with all this stuff going on top of everything that's going on in the world, on top of all the stuff that's trying to keep you away and keep you in that state of separation, that's why system busters like myself have to kind of come along and step up. But it's all good. I feel like this is what I need to do. So we're talking about the fifth dimension, and we're talking about how the construct of your soul, and how it's interplaying with you down here, and how you yourself are a shadow or a reflection of your higher self, right? Like, even when you look here and you see the sun in the sky, and you see this reflection of it on the water, on the water surface. That's kind of like who we are, right? We are the reflection. Our higher self, our fifth dimensional self, is the sun aspect of who we are. Like I mentioned before, it's like trying to fit this whole pond into a gallon of water. And I should probably say a bathtub. It's more like trying to fit this whole pond into a bathtub. You will never be as great as your higher self. And strive for it. Yeah, good luck, but it's not really the goal here. That's not really what you're intended to do. Now, if you want to be somebody who's I myself as this human being am the mightiest and the greatest thing in the universe, and I don't care what anybody else has to say about it, then whatever. If that's the adventure you want to go on it, you know what I mean? But at the same time, what we are doing here is to go to our higher self. All of the experiences that we have here to go to our higher self, and that's the salvation. That is the triumph. That's the joy of this whole experience. That's why we have a crown chakra, because we are always connected to our higher self. And the name of the game isn't just to have all the answers all the time and to be your higher self here all the time. The name of the game is to go out into the world as a vessel, as almost like a child of yourself, right? Just like how humans, males or whatever, whenever we, are procreating or whatever, it's a part of ourselves that's shooting out and shooting outward, right? To be another life here. And that is what we are to our higher self. It's just the same thing playing out on a higher dimension or a higher degree, whatever you want to call it. And we are literally the walking versions of ourselves. Our higher self has children, pretty much, that are itself. You know what I mean? It's almost like creating an AI. Man, now that I think about it, watch, they're gonna make games where you literally make Sims. It's pretty much like Sims, right? But imagine Sims, but if you put your own AI self in Sims, right? If there is a version, which I'm sure there will be, if Sims, well, man, watch them get onto this shit, man. I'd be ahead of the game. But it's also because when you get a glimpse at the higher dimensions, it's not like I know the whole truth and I know everything now, but it's like I got to see a glimpse of how it works in the higher dimension, right? So if you get a glimpse of what it looks like in heaven, just that alone is so much knowledge, right? If you were to say you went to heaven and say, oh yeah, I went to heaven, and you're back on earth, right? That those few moments give you so much understanding. And if you're somebody like me, I'm somebody who likes to like break down the details and like figure this thing out, right? And piece it together, because I'm good at that. That's how my brain works. And from doing so, it's like you see what that realm is like, so you know that there's certain universal truths that transcend into the higher realms, because you can see it there. And so how if it works there, it's going to work down here, and you see it. Like once you understand that, and once you have that experience, it's easy to tell what's going on down here, because what is going on down here is like a reflection of it, right? It's like what could I say? How could I say it? Like pretty much like, if I don't know, like a video game like that hasn't came out yet, like GTA 6 or some shit, right? If you got to play GTA 6 for like 5 minutes right now when nobody knows anything about it, you're gonna have all this information that no one's gonna know until it comes out, But that's kind of the same way. Like no one's gonna know until they die, and hopefully whenever they do go, their soul isn't too caught up on the fourth, and they can see what's going on in the higher planes. But yeah, it's pretty much like that. It's like once you get that glimpse, you have just so much knowledge and so much awareness of that. Like there's like a certain gnosis that you can unlock from it, and just like seeing the code of the Matrix, you're like, oh, okay, I can see how this works now. I understand it now. Man, we're already at 7 minutes. Jesus. But anyways, but yeah, so that's what we're doing here. We are projections of our higher self here into the third, right? We're like an AI. If you have an AI version of yourself, right, which I'm sure people are gonna have eventually, and you're to put the AI version of yourself into different video games just to see how you would do, that's what we're doing. It's like, oh man, like I wonder how I would work in Halo world, or I wonder how I work in Mario world, or I wonder what I would do. So your higher self sends yourself out there, and like you are the coolest version of a character. Like you're the actual player, right? You're like the higher self doesn't want to interfere because it wants to see what its soul can do, like how much its soul has grown, what it can do in this game, right? And it can help it out, it can help to guide it and so forth, but it's more so just enjoying the experience of seeing what it can do in its lower dimension, right? And in that is literally what we're doing, right? So like you as being the player, it's cool to be the player and to also be aware that you are the player. You know what I mean? Because it's like you get to like kind of like look at God in a sense as like the little version, and you'll be like, yo, you're like, yo, like I'm trying down here. Like you see me kicking ass, like you kind of get to be the little guy. But it's fine, because no matter how big of a human you are or whatever, you still are the little guy compared to your larger self. But it's you. So it's a very paradoxical / kind of comedic, kind of fun relationship, because it's you, like, and it's cool that the universe sets that up, because it's like you would be afraid of anything else, right? If you died and you saw a big gigantic being that looked like a freaking praying mantis, or looked like a freaking, even if it was a lion, like even if it looked like something that was even just another person, if it had like blue skin or something, you'd be like, is that a demon? or if it had like, whatever, people be like, you might lose your shit. So it's kind of cool that once you get to the other side, the first thing that you see, in my experience, is yourself. Is yourself. And it's a good way to not lose your shit when you cross over. You know, I think so. As in my personal opinion, as a safeguard, if I were to like look at how the universe works and kind of like, you know, reverse engineer it, I'll be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Like, you know, but it's cool. It's fun, in my opinion. It's like, oh, that's what we're doing, you know. But beforehand, you as a little person, you're kind of scared. You're like, oh, like what's life? What's going on? Like, oh, why would all this happen to me? And like, you know, like, oh, you know, all these things that I've had to go through and da da da. And you're still kind of stuck in this space of separation. You're stuck in this space of being like, you know, the fear of being separate, you know, from something, the fear of like missing out, the fear of something being off or something being wrong. You're still playing that role of someone who's, you know, of the soul who's not aware of its expansiveness. You know, you're like, and that's where a lot of the disconnect between the fifth and the third happen. Is because people that are now that tub of water or that gallon of water have forgotten, like this, right? A bottle of water. I'll liken it like this. This is probably the best analogy I can give y'all, right? You see this water, right? Imagine if I took this water out of the pond, right? So this water and the water in the pond is the exact same thing as both water, right? I could drink both of them. The only thing that's keeping this separate is this plastic container. Oh my God, this is so much truth right here. It's kind of wild. That's literally what's going on. And there's a lot of people, our souls, when we're here, all we see is this bottle. And we're like, no, that's not us. That's not us. We're like this bottle of water looking back at the ocean. And we're like, that's not us. Like, I'm so afraid. I'm so scared. Like, what if something happens to me? What if, like, you know, da da da. And your higher self is we're not here to be afraid. It's not, the design of this thing is not to be scared and to, you know, to not go for your dreams or not to fully bloom. You know what I mean? And that's what I mean as the caterpillar to the butterfly. Like, becoming the butterfly is understanding that there's literally, this plastic container is nothing. Like, you are it. And being able to, once your blooming thing is the plastic, the water going out of the thing and going back in there, and then coming back in here. You know what I mean? And so you're like, oh, I get it now. Let's do this thing. Yeah. You know what I mean? But you even being on that sort of level of triumph is a reflection of your higher self and what it already is in a state of. It's always in that state of, oh, I'm my, you know, but it's not like ego, like, oh, it's all about me. But it's just free. It's on, right? Like the sun. The sun is burning, right? It is giving off massive amounts of energy that we can use for solar powers and feeds all the plants and feeds all the animals. And it's constantly doing it. It's constantly emitting outward. That's the state of raw, you know? That's the pure energy. That's literally what it's, that's what it's like. The center of this whole thing is. It's this constant flow of not just, oh, like I'm feeling vibing. I'm just like a constant flow of, oh, you know? And it's this feeling of triumph, and this feeling of greatness. And it's like laughing, right? Like, real quick, before I even get to the laughing part, this greatness, it's so massive that nothing can contain it besides space, right? Like if I was to be so much light here, I can only be so much light here, right? I'm the container, right? And even as this little container can be the thing that's going, oh, right? Or the bigger thing is the thing that's going, oh, right? But at the same time, this container can only fit so many like organisms within it, right? Microorganisms, right? And when you get into a bigger body of water, like this pond, you get bigger fish, right? You get bigger organisms. And when you get into the ocean, you get some of the biggest organisms that are on the world, on the planet, right? Like blue whales and so forth, right? Giant squids and all that stuff. So when you get to space, there's beings or celestial bodies or whatever that are so mighty that it can only exist within space, because space is an infinite expanse, right? So some things are literally so large that like Jupiter, right? It's like there's some things that are just, there's a higher dimension, right? It's whether you call it macrocosm or microcosm, it's just on a higher level, right? Here on the human Earth surface level, we got all this stuff going on. But if you zoom out, you got another level of things going on. And you're not looking at Earth and seeing us as humans. You're just seeing the planet. You're seeing the other celestial bodies. And that's literally what's going on. That's what's going on. The sun is like, and the planets are like, ooh, like, who's this? Like, who's this, like, warm? I'm just kidding. But, like, at the same time, obviously, the planets weren't, like, attracted by the sun. But there's a relationship that's interplaying between the two. The energy that the sun is giving off is interacting with the earth, and the earth is creating life, right? Just like how, Mother Nature, right? There's a feminine aspect to it, to where it's receiving energy and multiplying it out, right? So these are just some cosmic secrets, some other little cosmic secrets that people don't be talking about. But I'm really just trying to help people become more aware, because it's going to be a pivotal year. There's a lot of things happening, and if anything were to happen to you or your loved ones, God forbid, I just want people to have an understanding of what's going on, so that way when we do cross and when we do have to come to these moments of like death, it's not seen so much as like it's the end of things. It's rather us losing the limitations that we are existing within. We're losing the container. And it's not to say that we lose who we are in that, and that can feel scary to people. The idea of like when you die and you just dissipate and you turn into something bigger. That's not the case. There's levels to this thing. You don't just disappear and just turn into dust or whatever. You go back into your higher self. You know what I mean? And it's you. I promise you it's you. It's more you than you. And that's the beautiful part of it. That's the beautiful aspect of how this whole thing is constructed. You in your best moments are the truest reflection of your higher self. Like your higher self, that's what it does, like all day. Like it's the version of you that can sing like Whitney Houston. It's the version of you that can, like command any space with authority. Is a version of you that's like that. But anyways, I don't want to rant. I don't want this to go on too long. But yeah, just kind of doubling back down on the fifth dimension and aspects of how these interplays work with your fifth dimension self and your third dimensional self, and how the fifth dimension, the fourth dimension is like the bottle, like the actual plastic bottle. That's like the veil that's keeping these two things separate from one another. It is the Sistine Chapel. It's the space between the two fingers touching on the Sistine Chapel. That's what this fourth dimension is. And a lot of us humans, in our mind, we can't get past this fourth dimension, even though it's just a simple, looking back on it, it's just a simple aspect of it that's meant to be there, so that way we know the difference between a bottle and the pond. You know what I mean? And it's not to say that like there needs to be a difference, but there kind of has to be in order to play the game, right? Obviously, like you can't play a video game and actually have your life on the line. That would be kind of weird, right? Like playing Apex or playing Halo or even Call of Duty, and if nobody would play that game if your life was actually on the line and you die. You know what I mean? Like it's for fun. You know what I mean? So that's like what we're doing here. Like you don't actually like die like for real like that, like to where it's all like doom and gloom. You actually bloom. Like spoiler alert, plot twist, there's no doom, you only bloom. Like for real. Okay, that's it. See y'all soon.